In this question, where we're given y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3, we're going to solve for the roots, the axis of symmetry, and the turning point. Now, noticing this is a quadratic, what we first need to do to solve the roots is we're going to use factorization. Now, what we're going to start with is identifying our a value, our b value, and our c value. Now, with our a values, we have a numbers associated with the square. Therefore, we're using a as 1. B, we're looking at the number and the letter. Whatever number is with the letter, we're going to put that number here, which is negative 2. And lastly, for C, it's a number alone, so we're going to have negative 3. So in using our factorization, we're going to say AC, which is the method we're using, is 1 times negative 3, which is negative 3. So what we now need to focus on is finding two numbers when we multiply them gives us negative 3, and we add or subtract them is going to give us negative 2. So what we're going to have here is negative 3 times 1 will give us negative 3, and negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. So what we are doing here is called the factors of the number. And in actually doing this step, it will allow for us to establish what needs to go in the place of negative 2x. So what we now have is, looking for a factorization, x squared minus 3x plus x minus 3, which is going to be equal to x, common factor for the first two, then we have x minus 3 plus, now that we just have x and minus 3, we're just going to use 1, and then we're going to do x minus 3. So in the next line, what we're doing, notice we have the brackets here, we're going to do x minus 3, and then we're going to have x plus 1. Now with this aspect completed, we're now going to solve for the values of x. So in the first bracket, we have x minus 3, which is equal to 0. X is equal to positive 3. And from the second bracket, we're going to have x plus 1 is equal to 0. X is equal to minus 1. And this here would actually be the roots of this equation. So with that being established, we can now move on to the axis of symmetry. For the axis of symmetry, what we're actually going to do is use the formula x is equal to minus b over 2a. Now looking at what we know, b is negative 2, so we're going to have a negative, negative 2. Reason why we're using negative 2 in a bracket is because b is given as negative 2. And then for 2a, we're going to have 2 in the bracket 1. So negative 2 times a negative that's outside is basically saying negative 1 times negative 2 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. This here will be simplified to give me 1. Therefore, the axis of symmetry is 1. Now, to know what the y value is, that would actually be the point, that's the turning point, we'll use what we're given as the original equation, which is y is equal to x squared minus 2x minus 3. So using 1, where we see x, we're going to have 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 3. So this is 1 minus 2 minus 3, which is going to give me negative 4. Now, using all of this information, it will allow for you to actually draw the graph. So we're actually doing a simple sketch, starting with the roots. We know that we have, this is our x-axis, and here is the y-axis. So recognizing that our x values, we have x cutting the x-axis here at positive 3 and negative 1. And our turning point, let me just add this here now. It's actually going to be equal to the axis of symmetry x value, which is 1, and what we saw for y here being negative 4. So what this means is we're looking at positive 1 and coming all the way down to negative 4, and that here would be the point. Now for your sketch, this is of course going to take some practice. And all you need to do now is just draw, and then you have your curve and goes upwards. Now, of course, it's not a perfect sketch, but you would actually be able to do it on your own and have that perfect sketch. I'll also include an images for you to see exactly how the sketch would look. And with that being said, this video is basically for you to understand how to solve for the roots, axis of symmetry, and turning point. Now to just do one more thing for the axis of symmetry, that's basically the line that's dividing this curve into two equal parts. So where we have that dotted line just drawn, that's basically the axis of symmetry being 1.